Reducing the numbers.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
You talked all about your opening statement about the number of domestic terrorism threats. We've had multiple whistleblowers come to our office and tell us that they're being pressured to categorize cases as domestic terrorist threats that aren't. And I'm just wondering, because it was the opening of your statement, most of your statement, you talked about this new office you filled. Are you juicing the numbers?
So I'm not aware of the references you're making to the whistleblowers. What I can tell you is that the intelligence community has assessed that the threat we face from domestic violent extremism is elevated, and that's consistent with what I see on a daily basis.
Who is Timothy T-Bolt?
I'm sorry, I don't know that name.
You don't know that name? Mr. Grassley does. Mr. Grassley cited in his letter. Mr. Gates brought him up in his 5 minutes of questioning. Mr. T-Bolt's a guy who suppressed information that was verifiable about Hunter Biden in 2020. You don't know who this individual is?
I'm sorry, I don't know who that is.
You know what's also interesting about this individual? He's the guy that the whistleblowers told us is pressuring them to recategorize the cases as domestic terrorism cases. And you don't know anything about him.
I do not.
All right, well, I guess that maybe stands to reason. I find that interesting. How many more parents has the Department of Justice investigated?
The Justice Department and the FBI investigate individuals who commit acts of violence or threats of violence.
I'm talking relative to the school board issue. How many more parents have you investigated? We know of 20-some, over 24, because, again, we've had other whistleblowers come forward and tell us about that. I mean, the number, it's almost like it's a well-worn trail of FBI agents coming as whistleblowers to our office because so many things that they're concerned about going on at the Justice Department. So we know of over 24. I want to know how many more have you done since we sent that letter 2 months ago to the Justice Department?
So we don't investigate anyone based on their status as a parent or not a parent. We would investigate and prosecute. You would
investigate them based on the threat tag, EDU officials, the designation. How many more than the 20-some we know about already? How many more have been investigated because they have that threat tag associated with their name?
I don't believe that anyone's been investigated because they have a threat tag, and I can't speak to that.
How else are you going to identify them? That was the FBI memo, threat tag on their name, EDU officials, and they've been investigated. And again, we know of over 24 of them.
I don't have specific information about that.
All right. You were on the press release when the Attorney General issued his memorandum on October 4th, 2021. The National Security Division was mentioned on this press release that went out that day. Here's what the press release says. According to the Attorney General's memorandum, the Justice Department will launch a series of additional efforts to include the creation of a task force. Has that task force been created?
I believe that it has, yes.
You believe, or has it?
I believe that it has, yes.
Who's on it?
So a number of components across the Justice Department.
Who's on the task force?
A number of components are represented on the task force, from the criminal division to the civil division.
Well, components don't serve on task force. People do. Who are the people on the task force?
A number of representatives of those components serve on the task force.
Do you serve on it?
I am not a member of the task force. I have not been to any meetings. There are a number of representatives across the department who form that task force.
Who from the NSD is on the task force?
I don't have any information about who particularly is on the task force from my division.
This was a big press release. This was the biggest story in the news last fall, and the National Security Division is one of the components on the task force, and you've never been to a task force meeting, and you don't know who from your division is?
Correct.
Are you guys embarrassed about this whole looking into the school boards going after moms and dads? Is this an embarrassment? I mean, the National School Board Association has pulled back their letter. They said they apologized for it. They regret that they did it. A bunch of states have pulled out of the organization. I'm just wondering if that's the same attitude you guys now have. Frankly, that'd be good if you did.
I think we take very seriously that anyone who serves in civic life deserves to be safe. And anyone who serves on a school board, on a city council, in any position of public trust, they should not be the subject of threats of violence or violence. And that's the point of this effort, is to work with particularly
and parents should feel safe that they can speak their mind about their kids' education and not be harassed for doing so. You know, we've sent you 103 letters, 584 specific requests over the last 9 months. I have a whole stack of them here. Have you collected any of the information we've asked for? Have you collected that information?
I'm aware that there have been requests. I don't know the status of the response to those requests. I'm certainly willing to take that back to our office.
We know the status of the response. You've basically given us the finger and said we're not going to give you any. We got two letters with like a half a paragraph on each letter. I just want to know if you've actually collected the information. We know you're not going to give it to us because we've seen that over the last 9 months. Have you collected any of it?
I'm not sure what Sir, I'm not sure what you mean by collected any of the information. I'm certainly willing to.
584 specific requests about correspondence, emails, the communication between the Justice Department, the White House, the Department of Education. We've asked for the information. I'm just asking, have you even started to collect it?
I'm certainly willing to take that question back to our Office of Legislation.
Well, I think it's interesting you don't know the answer to it, so it tells me you probably
The gentleman's time
haven't.
has expired.